Mentioned about being aware of decision-making process rather than the outcomes. Yeah. I think having that sort of, I think you've mentioned it before, the decision-making journal.
Yeah.
Some way of recording what was your process for making that decision.
Yeah.
Or I'd even say, you know, if you are, say, faced with a really difficult decision, you know, imagine you've lots of options, you're trying to, okay, you've narrowed it down to a few options, but none of them seem quite perfect. There are these big consequences at stake. You're worried about making the wrong decision. That can sometimes, you know, cause that indecisiveness because you're kind of paralyzed, you're afraid to go any direction. But what I think is useful is you can create a list, and it's similar to that decision-making journal, but just listing all the reasons of why you were choosing to make this decision in this particular way at this particular time. So then later on, even if it doesn't go well, you can come back to that list and say, okay, well, at that time, with the information I had, that was the best decision I could make. And I think that can stop the sort of regret from keep creeping in. Or, you know, if people maybe lack this confidence in their decision-making capabilities, they can kind of come back to that and say, look, it's okay that it didn't work out perfectly, but I did the best I could. And so it can tackle all of those things like lack of confidence or hindsight bias, where we think we made a bad decision because of bad outcomes or vice versa. I think the list as well can be important to come back to when emotions are heightened. You know, like when emotions kind of, it's like if the emotions go up, you're angry, you're upset, or like you mentioned, you're tired, your sugar levels are low, logic can kind of go out the window a bit. So it's very easy to ignore that logic when emotions are heightened. But coming back to the logical list, it can kind of balance things out a bit. So
I love that point. I mean, it's a great one. It's one that I always recommend, and I do it myself, is as individual decision making is asking yourself, am I in the right headspace to make this decision? Like, is this really the right time to make this? Should I sleep on it? Should I go for a walk? Can I do it? Sometimes, obviously, you've got to make the decision now, regardless. But it's a really good thing. It's just asking yourself, that's the emotionally intelligent way to do this.
Exactly,
am I in the right place? And it could be because, you know, if you're feeling low, you may overemphasize negative aspects. If you're on a high in a really, you know, zoomed up, you may be actually overemphasizing the positives. So a more neutral aspect might be a better place to be. So just being aware of where you are emotionally and asking yourself the question, is this the emotional state I'm in going to help me with this decision, or is it going to work against me? Even stopping to ask yourself that question is a really good thing to do. So that's another tip.
Exactly. Yeah, we're full of tips. And even that, you know, like at the moment, I think we're like, you know, we've a thermometer in the house, we're kind of taking our temperature more regularly. It's like taking your emotional temperature, you know, checking in. And like you said, sometimes you do have to make a decision, you know, right now, but at any point you can take 3 deep breaths, you know, regardless of how quickly you need to make the decision. You can pause for 10 seconds and just check in and say, okay, what's going on? Oh, my heart's racing. Am I excited? Am I nervous? What's happening there? Where's that coming from? You know, and what's that telling me? What impact is that going to have on how I behave?
I mean, a great example is given is like if you're doing something like a risk assessment, you're actually better off to do it if you're in a low mood because you're looking for risk. So, you know, for kind of a risk assessment, like going in when you've just been given a promotion or something and you're on the top of the world, you're probably not going to spot risks as much. Whereas if you're going to do something like, you know, you really are looking at innovation, you do want to be you know, I suppose emotionally positive and high energy for that. So you're right, just checking in. And if you find, well, this mood currently isn't working for me, you know, figuring out a way to shift your mood is also really useful. So what David Caruso calls matching mood to task is really important.